जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paripuradigataristottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace K.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paripuradigataristottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौरभक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण रुक्मिणी सत्यभामा की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, text, chapter number 24, the renunciation of Kardama Muni, text number 39. Mam Atmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Mam Atmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Mamatmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Sarva Bhuta Guha Ashayam. Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam. Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam. Atmani Eva Atmana Vikshya. Atmanyevatmana Vikshya. Atmanyevatmana Vikshya. Vishoko Abhayam Richasi. Vishoko Bhayam Richasi. Vishoko Bhayam Richasi. Mamatmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Sarva Bhuta Guhashaya. Atmanyevatmana Vikshya. Vishoko Bhayam Richasi. Mamatmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Sarva Bhuta Guhashaya. Atmanyevatmana Vikshya. Vishoko Bhayam Richasi. Mam, me, Atmanam, the Supreme Soul, or Paramatma, Swayam Jyotihi, self-effulgent, Sarva Bhuta, of all beings, Guha, in the hearts, Ashayam, dwelling, Atmani, in your own heart, Eva, indeed, Atmana, through your intellect, Vikshya, always seeing, always thinking, Vishokaha, free from lamentation, Abhayam, fearlessness, Richasi, you will achieve. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Translation: in your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the Supreme Self-Effulgent Soul, dwelling within the hearts of all living entities. Thus, you will achieve the state of eternal life, free from all lamentation and fear. Kindly repeat. In your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the supreme self-effulgent soul, dwelling within the hearts of all living entities. Thus you will achieve the state of eternal life, free from all lamentation and fear. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. People are very anxious to understand the absolute truth in various ways, especially by experiencing the Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence, by meditation and by mental speculation. But Kapiladeva uses the word Mam to emphasize that the personality of Godhead is the ultimate feature of the absolute truth. In Bhagavad-gita, the personality of Godhead always says Mam unto me, but the rascals misinterpret the clear meaning. Mam is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He appears in different incarnations and understand that He has not assumed a material body but is present in His own eternal spiritual form, then one can understand the nature of the personality of Godhead. Since the less intelligent cannot understand this point, it is stressed everywhere again and again. Simply by seeing the form of the Lord as He presents Himself by His own internal potency as Krishna or Rama or Kapila, one can directly see the Brahma Jyoti, because the Brahma Jyoti is no more than the effulgence of His bodily luster. Since the sunshine is the luster of the sun planet, by seeing the sun, one automatically sees the sunshine. Similarly, by seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one simultaneously sees and experiences the Paramatma feature as well as the impersonal Brahman feature of the Supreme. The Bhagavatam has already enunciated that the absolute truth is present in three features: in the beginning as the impersonal Brahman, in the next stage as a Paramatma in everyone's heart, and at last as the ultimate realization of the absolute truth, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who sees the Supreme Person can automatically realize the other features, namely the Paramatma and Brahman features of the Lord. The words used here are Vishoko Abhayam Richasi. Simply by seeing the personality of Godhead, one realizes everything, and the result is that one becomes situated on the platform where there is no lamentation and no fear. This can be attained simply by devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pandvam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. In the late 90s, from Bangalore Temple, when we would go on book distribution during the book marathon. Book marathon we celebrate during December to commemorate the Gita Jayanti and various other events which have occurred in the history. During book distribution, the Bangalore those days, what we used to do was, we would go to the railway station, and at the Bangalore railway station, there are many long distance trains. Our favorite long distance train used to be KK Express. That goes from Bangalore to Delhi. I think even now it's there. what we would do, we would take books, one group, we would form teams, and one team would go to the railway station. We would board the KK Express, and then we would keep distributing books even as the train starts. And we try to cover as much of the train as possible. And at the next station, wherever the train would stop, we would get off. And then reverse direction, some other train will be coming. We'll board that. So we have time till we reach the city central railway station. Till then, we'll keep distributing books in that train also. So we would keep hopping trains back and forth many times. So once, while we were distributing books like this, I had also joined one team and we were distributing books, and we were sitting in the train as it was going from city railway station to the next station where we would get off. So before that, we were going, meeting different people, and in the train people don't have much to do, not like today. Today people have a lot to do. They'll be looking at their mobile, they'll not look up. Those days it was not like that. There were no mobiles. I'm talking 96, 97, those days. So there were no mobiles. So people would all be sitting idly, not got anything to do. So we would go from compartment to compartment, seat to seat, talk to the people, show them the books of Prabhupada, and people would buy. So like that, I was also talking to some people, and I was showing them the books of Prabhupada and talking about how Krishna, Bhagavad-gita and all that. So after I spoke for a little while, one man spoke up, one young chap, young fellow. Said, what you said is all okay, but in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, the Supreme is described as impersonal, not as personal. So fortunately, I was carrying a copy of the Ishopanishad. I said, no, look at Ishopanishad, and I opened the 15th verse. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hidam mukham tattvam pushannapavrana satyadharmaya drishtaye. I read out this verse. This verse is a very simple and straightforward verse. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya apihitam mukham. The face of the absolute truth, satyam, satyasya mukham. The face of the absolute truth. It is covered by what? Hiranmayena patrena, by bright effulgence. Tattvam pushan apavrana. Pushan, O maintainer. The Supreme Absolute Truth is the maintainer of the entire material universe. All the living entities are maintained by that Supreme Lord. Like in the Upanishads, Prabhupada often quoted that verse. Nityo nityanam chetano chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. That one Supreme Soul who is maintaining all other living entities. That is the Absolute Truth. So, Pushan, O maintainer of all the living entities and the material cosmic manifestation. Tattvam Pushan apavrana. You please uncover your lotus face. Satya dharmaya drishtaye. So that your devotee who is engaged in Satya dharma, who is engaged in the spiritual activities, will be able to see your face. So I showed him this verse and I told him, see, mukham, it is mentioned, face. So face means it has to be a person. So that man was really surprised. And he started reading again and again. And then finally he bought that book. So, so people generally have this tendency even today to think that the absolute truth must be impersonal. That is the final, ultimate understanding of the absolute truth. Just like in Christianity, once one Christian pastor, one Christian father, he gave a talk on TED Talk or something like that. And a very, sober man, very nicely he was speaking. He was talking about how Christianity professes a personal God, Father in heaven. It's a person. And often they come across difficult questions which they are unable to answer in Christian philosophy. Like one time, one small girl, some 4 or 5 year old girl, she asked the Pope. The Pope was visiting somewhere, the small girl came to Pope and she had a question for the Pope. She asked the Pope that what was God doing before he created all of us? For a moment, the Pope was stumped. He did not know what to say. Then he smiled and he said, love. God was loving. And then he moved on. Now, if the next question had come, whom was he loving? Because nobody has been created. No, it would have been further confusion. So the point is that in Christian philosophy, they come across these kind of tough questions which they are unable to answer. This father who was giving this talk, whenever they greet someone, they fold their hands and they say Namaste. Namaste means I offer my respects to the Supreme within you. Somebody has given this kind of interpretation to him. Poor man, he doesn't know Sanskrit. So he thought this is the meaning of Namaste. And so in India, they see the Supreme in everything. They don't see the Supreme as a separate person. So what if God is in everything? God is in you, in me, in everything, and God is not some one person sitting up there as a Father in heaven. Then that will explain many things. So he was saying, very difficult to explain the personal aspect of the Supreme. Easier to explain it as an impersonal aspect. Because understanding the personal feature of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Param Satya, is very, very difficult. People think they are able to reconcile many things by accepting the Supreme as an impersonal feature, impersonal Brahman. But what are the Upanishads, what are the Vedas, what are they stating? They are stating that Hiranmayena Patrena, that effulgence that is there, that is the Brahman effulgence. Beyond that, the Supreme Absolute Truth, Satyasya Mukham, the Absolute Truth has a face, has a personality. To realize the Absolute Truth as an impersonal Brahman is only a partial realization. Why partial realization? Because if we look at how the impersonal Absolute Truth is described in the Vedic scriptures, it is described in the Upanishads also, saying that Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yasmin abhisamvishanti prayanti abhisamvishanti. In three ways, the Absolute Truth, in three ways of addressing, it is explained that the Absolute Truth is from whom we all have emanated, this material world, all living entities, we have all emanated. By whom we are all maintained, and in whom we will all rest at the time of annihilation. So in these three ways, the impersonal Brahman is realized. So the impersonal Brahman is actually causing this cosmic manifestation to appear, to take birth. The material universe is emanating from the impersonal Brahman. So if we realize the impersonal Brahman, if we understand the impersonal Brahman, we can only understand it as the creator of this material universe and all the living entities therein. So we can understand that Absolute Truth, the Brahman feature, only refers to the creative aspect of the Absolute Truth. Creation, maintenance, destruction of this material world. So it is still in material terms that we are understanding the Absolute Truth. We are not yet gone to the spiritual aspect of the Absolute Truth. So that is why in the Brahma Samhita also it states, Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda, Yasya Prabha Prabhavato, what is that? Jagadanda Koti Shvasesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shri Krishna. So, Yasya Prabhavataha of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Govindam Adipurusham, who is Govinda, he is the Supreme Powerful. His Yasya Prabha, his effulgence, Yasya Prabhavataha, Jagadanda Koti Swashesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinnam. That Prabha, that effulgence of the Supreme Lord, of Govinda, is what manifests the material universe with its variegated planets. Vibhuti Bhinnam. Vasudha, different planets. Vibhuti Bhinnam, with all kinds of opulences. Each of the planets is filled with various kinds of opulences. Various kinds of varieties are manifested in the different planets. Each planet has its own variegated manifestations. And that is called Vasudhadi. Vasudha means the various planets. Vibhuti Bhinnam, they are filled with all kinds of vibhutis, all kinds of variegated manifestations, all kinds of variegated opulent manifestations of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So this is manifested by whom? All these material planets with all its variegatedness, that is manifested by Yasya Prabha, that effulgence of the Supreme Lord. Tad Brahma, that is known as Brahman, which is Anantam Nishkalam, which is unlimited and which is without varieties. That impersonal Brahman is without varieties. Nishkalam. Nishkalam means without varieties. So, that varietyless, attributeless Brahman is the effulgence of the Supreme Absolute Truth. And that is the source of creation of this material universe. So we can see how the Brahman effulgence is understood to be the source of creation of this material universe. Still, that is a material way of understanding the Absolute Truth. And further, Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita, he says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya avyayasya cha shashvatasya dharmasya cha. So he is saying that Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. Krishna is saying, I am the foundation, I am the support, I am the source of that Brahman. That Brahman is situated upon Krishna. Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. Amritasya avyayascha. That Brahman which is Amrita, which is eternal, avyaya, without transformation, shashvatasya dharmasya cha, and which is eternal. That Brahman, Krishna is saying, that is situated upon Krishna. Krishna is the source of that Brahman also. And not only that, Sukhasya ikantikasya cha, that Brahman is the source of spiritual Ananda. So there is Brahmananda. If somebody realizes Brahman, he realizes Brahmananda, because of which he loses all the taste for material sense gratification. So that Brahman which is without variegatedness, which is unlimited, which is changeless, which is the source of bliss, spiritual bliss, is actually emanating from Krishna. Therefore, that Brahman is only a partial aspect of the Absolute Truth with respect to the creation of this material universe. Now, higher than that is to understand that the Absolute Truth has an all-pervasive controlling feature, a feature by which the Absolute Truth pervades everything. Like the Christian father was saying, what if God is, the Supreme is in everything? So that is another feature of the Absolute Truth. One feature of Absolute Truth is the Brahman, which is the creative aspect of the Absolute Truth. Then there is another aspect of the Absolute Truth which is all pervasive and controlling everything. So Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Upadrashta Anumanta. Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha. The Paramatmeti Chapyuktaha, that Paramatma feature of the Absolute Truth, what is known as Paramatma, that Paramatma is Upadrashta. He is the witness of all the actions of all the living entities. Anumanta, he is the sanctioner. When a living entity desires to act in a particular way, it can act like that only if the Lord sanctions, if Paramatma sanctions, if the super soul sanctions. So he is controlling. He is witnessing. That means he is all knowing, and he is controlling. He is all powerful. Bharta, and he is the maintainer. The Paramatma maintains all the living entities. Bharta cha Maheshwara, Bhokta, and he is the enjoyer of everything. Why? Because Maheshwaraha, he is the supreme controller. He is the supreme controller, he is the supreme enjoyer, because he is the one who has created this whole universe. All the living entities have come from him. So he is the supreme enjoyer. Upadrashta, Anumanta cha, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwaraha, Paramatmeti chapyukto, Dehesmin, Purushaha Paraha. So in this body, in every body, the Paramatma is situated. The Paramatma is there, Super Soul is there in every living entity's body. And even though he is within the body, he is Purushaha Paraha. He is the Supreme Person. So, the Brahman aspect of the Absolute Truth takes care of creation of this material world. Whereas the Paramatma takes care of the all-pervasive feature and the controlling aspect of the Absolute Truth, and he maintains all the living entities. So, this is the Paramatma feature. Still, we have not gone out of this material world. We are still in the material world only. We are talking of creation, we are talking of control, we are talking of all-pervasiveness to be able to have complete knowledge, but still we are within this material world. And this Paramatma, Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita that this Paramatma is but a small fragment of his splendor. What is that verse? Where Krishna says that this Paramatma is just the one fraction of his this one. Atava bahunaitena kim jnatena tava arjuna aham krishnasya aham vishtabhyaham idam krishnam ekamshena stito jagat. Eka amsha, with my one amsha, with my one fragment, vishtabhyaham idam krishnam, I am supporting this entire material creation. And stito jagat, and I am situated within this material universe. So he is situated within this material universe, and he is supporting, means he is maintaining, Bharta, he is maintaining this whole universe. How? As the Paramatma, which is, and that Paramatma is what? Is one simple Ekamsha, is one small fragment of Krishna's splendor. So the Paramatma is also a partial feature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So both the Brahman and Paramatma aspects are subservient to the personal aspect of the Absolute Truth, and the personality of the Supreme Lord Krishna is actually the source of both Brahman and Paramatma, and therefore he is the full manifestation of the Absolute Truth. And like Prabhupada is explaining in the purport to today's verse, Prabhupada is saying that just like if we look at the sun, then the sunshine is also included in that. The sun globe is also included, the sunshine is also included. So, if we look at the sunshine, it is not like looking at the sun. It's different. However, if we look at the sun, the sunshine is also included. Similarly, if we realize Brahman, it is not the full realization of the Absolute Truth. If we realize Paramatma, Super Soul, it is not full realization of the Absolute Truth. But if we realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, then in that realization, the realization of Brahman and Paramatma are also included. The impersonal and all-pervasive aspects of the Absolute Truth are included. So therefore, in this verse, Kapila Deva is saying, Mam Atmanam Swayam Jyotihi. Swayam Jyotihi. He is talking about his own effulgence. which is Brahman. And Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam. Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam means who is situated within the heart of every living entity, which is the Paramatma feature. So both the Swayam Jyoti, the Brahman feature, and Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam, the super soul, the Paramatma feature, he is saying Mam. Kapila Dev is saying, I am that. I am the super soul and I am the Brahman. Mam Atmanam Swayam Jyoti Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam. So in your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, Kapila Dev, the supreme effulgent soul, the Brahman feature, dwelling within the hearts of all living entities, Paramatma feature. So he is saying to Kardama Muni that when you attain final complete perfection, you will be able to see Kapila Deva, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, as the Paramatma as well as the Brahman aspect. And that will be the culmination, the perfection of Kardama Muni's spiritual voyage. So this is spoken by Kapila Deva himself. And he is saying that when he is able to, Kardama Muni is able to see Mam Atmanam, the first word Atmanam, the first time he is using the word Atmanam, he is referring to the Supreme Soul, because the word Atma can refer to the soul, it can refer to the body, it can refer to the mind, it can refer to the heart, and it can refer to the super soul. So the first time he says Mam Atmanam, that means he's referring to the Paramatma, to the super soul. So Mam Atmanam Swayam Jyotihi Sarva Bhuta Guhashayam, to be able to see Kapila Deva as the Paramatma, as the super soul, Atmani, within his heart. This time the word Atmani means it is referring to the heart. Eva Atmana, through his intellect, through his intelligence, through his mind, he is able to see Kapila Deva as the Paramatma within the heart. Vikshya, by thus being able to see, Vishoko Abhayam Richasi, then Kardama Muni can attain fearlessness and freedom from all lamentation. Actually, this vision, as we are seeing in today's verse, in your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the supreme effulgent soul dwelling within the hearts of all living entities. To have this vision is actually the vision of a pure devotee. As stated in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Sarva Bhuteshu Yaha Pasyet Bhagavad-bhavam Atmanaha Bhutani Bhagavat-yatman Yesha Bhagavatottamaha. Who is an Uttama Bhagavata? Who is a Bhagavata Uttama? Bhagavatottama. Bhagavatottama means the pure devotee on the topmost platform of pure devotional service. We have three grades of devotees. One is the Kanishthadhikari, or the neophyte devotee, Madhyamadhikari, who is a little more advanced, and then there is Uttama Adhikari, who is the topmost pure devotee. So, an Uttamadhikari, a Bhagavatottama, what is his characteristic? Sarva Bhuteshu Yaha Pasyet Bhagavad-bhavam Atmanaha. One who is able to see Sarva Bhuteshu, in all living entities, Bhagavad-bhavam, that Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity. When he sees an ant also, he sees, oh, Paramatma is there in the heart of that living entity. When he sees a tree or a plant, he sees there also Paramatma is there within that. Everywhere he sees, every living entity he sees, he does not see their external form, he sees Krishna within them. Sthavara Jangama dekhe, na dekhe taramurti. Sarvatra Ishtadeva Spurti. A pure devotee. This is the vision of a pure devotee. Whenever he sees something, whenever he sees a living entity, na dekhe taramurti. Sthavara Jangama dekhe. Sthavara means those who are non-moving, means trees and plants. They do not move. They are achala. They remain in one position. So Sthavara and Jangama. Jangama means those who are moving. Moving means it can be birds, reptiles, aquatics, beasts, animals, human beings, all. all kinds of living entities. So Sthavara and Jangama, whether moving or non-moving. When a devotee sees na dekhe taramurti, he does not see their external form. Then what does he see? Sarvatra ishta deva spurti. Everywhere he sees Krishna. Oh, this is a Krishna's energy which is manifesting. Sarva bhuteshu yaha pasyed bhagavad bhavamatmanah bhutani bhagavati. And every living entity he sees in Krishna. That means every living entity he sees as part and parcel of Krishna. No living entity has an existence independent of Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth. One who has such a vision is called Esha Bhagavatottama. He is called an Uttamadikari. He is called a Bhagavata Uttama. So, Kapila Deva is advising Kardama Muni, Mahamatmanam Swayam Jyotihi Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Atmanyevatmana Vikshya Vishoko Abhayam Richasi. He is Kapila Deva is advising Kardama Muni, in your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the Supreme Effulgent Soul dwelling within the hearts of all living entities. So to be able to see Krishna in every living entity, and every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna. To be able to see Krishna in every living entity and every living entity in Krishna, that is the vision of a pure devotee. And when we attain that state of pure devotional service, when we become an Uttama Bhagavata, then what happens? Vishoko Abhayam Richasi. We will become fearless, no more repeated birth and death within this material world, and Vishokaha, we become free from all lamentation arising on account of our having taken a material body. So, to become free from lamentation, to become free from all fearfulness, which is a characteristic of this material world. This material world is characterized by bhaya, by fear and shoka. Bhaya and shoka, fear and lamentation. These are the characteristics of the material world. So anybody who is within this material world is not free from lamentation and fear. These two things are constant in the lives of everybody. Not only human beings, even all other animals also. If you look at a squirrel, the squirrel, it will be sitting somewhere and eating something. It will take a few bites, then it will look here, there, behind, and then again 2 bites, then again it will look around. Why? Because it is afraid. Somebody may come, they may capture me, they may kill me. So it is constantly in fear. You look at birds, birds are also like that. They'll catch some worm, go and peck 2-3 times, then they will look here, there, anybody is coming, then peck another 2-3 times, then look here, there. Constantly their eyes will be moving around. Why? Because fear. Who is going to come and attack me? So this fearfulness and lamentation are prominent characteristics of this material world. And anybody who identifies himself with this material body has to face these problems of fear and lamentation. If we want to become free from fear and lamentation, only way is to become a Bhagavatottama, to become a pure devotee. Not by jnana, not by Ashtanga yoga, but only by bhakti yoga can we become fearless and free. Is advising Kardama Muni also to render devotional service and come to the point where he will be able to see Krishna in every living entity and every living entity in Krishna. At that stage, he would have become a Bhagavatottama and he would no longer be under the clutches of the material identification with his own body. As a result, he can become free from all kinds of fear and lamentation arising out of a bodily concept of life. So this is the advice of Kapila Deva to Kardama Muni. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any questions or comments, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna. Like you explain some more about all pervading aspect and Brahman aspect. Sometimes I feel that Paramatma feature, like Paramatma is there not only in the heart of living beings as well as in atoms also. So everywhere this existed.
Yes.
In one sense, it appears to me that Paramatma feature is also all pervading.
Paramatma is the all pervading feature.
So
Paramatma is the all-pervasive aspect of the absolute truth. Brahman is the impersonal aspect.
So
So what is the question?
means Paramatma feature is the all-pervading aspect. No?
Yes,
Brahman effulgence.
impersonal aspect.
So how to understand that Brahman effulgence in?
What is that they to understand? Brahman effulgence is the rays of light emanating from the body of Krishna. It does not have any form. It does not have any qualities. It is unlimited. The Brahman effulgence surrounds the spiritual universe, and it keeps the spiritual world constantly in light and free from darkness. So just like you look at sunshine, right? Sunshine is coming through the windows.
Correct.
Can you attribute any form to the sunlight?
No, cannot enter.
You cannot attribute. Why? Because the sunlight is formless. Similarly, the light coming out of the body of Krishna is formless. Therefore, it is the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. Simple. Paramatma has a form. The Supreme Lord Bhagavan also has a form. Brahman does not have a form. Therefore, it is called the impersonal aspect. Is that okay?
Yes.
Anybody else? Any other question? We'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.